All right, good morning, everyone, or late morning, almost afternoon. My name is Lindsey Bookman. I am here as a representative of the Wellness Collaborative, which is a group of individuals on our campus, faculty, students, and staff, that come together to put together events like this together. We're really focused on all the different domains of wellness, but today we're really focused on mental health. But I'm also the Director of Advising and Records in the College of Education, Health, and Human Services. So if you're looking for a degree in Health and Human Services or education, let me know. But I'm here today to introduce our moderator for the event, who will then introduce our lovely panelists. So this is Dr. Patricia Wren. She is the Department Chair of the Health and Human Services Department. Thank you.
Those of you who have seen me moderate in the past know that I probably can't stay attached to my podium. So I stole the karaoke microphone, and that'll teach them for leaving that up here. But yes, greetings, welcome. Let me say, especially to our panelists, a huge and hearty thank you for their participation today. We may be suffering a little bit, attendance-wise, because it's the first day back after fall break, and I think one of the risks that we have in kind of academic calendars as we're marking time, students got a chance to catch their breath over the last 2 days and get caught up on reading and work and all of those things, and so despite reminders today, probably sort of dawned anew as a back-to-school kind of day. So there is that. We have made this available over the whole of the 2 hours together. So students may pop in after class, so we will be very welcoming of folks who join us. So as Lindsey commented, the Wellness Collaborative is a bit of a new initiative on our campus. We very much want to create an environment and a culture here at the University of Michigan-Dearborn where no question is out of bounds, no topic is too sensitive, no issue too serious or dire that we would not address it with courage and humility and that marvelous balance of both. And so I thank all of you for coming to help us in our process as today we talk about destigmatizing mental health. You'll see that you have note cards in front of you. Those are your opportunity to write down some questions that you may have. You may have them now as you arrive. They may dawn on you as the panel unfolds. And so please take the time to write down a question if you have. My colleagues, Lindsey, Blake, others may help collect those for me as the session unfolds. We are videotaping the event, but most of you are in relief with your backs to the camera. And so if privacy concerns or those kinds of issues are important to you as we talk about sensitive topics, please do let us know. We had some stickers outside that you are welcome to put on, which will let us know also for any still photography that you do not wish to be included in those images, and we want to respect your wishes in that way. And then finally, because it's me and they gave me a microphone, I should say that the opinions that are expressed today do not represent the University of Michigan-Dearborn. It could be inflammatory, and I don't know what's going to happen because my friends up here, my panelist colleagues, are doing this live without a net, and so they are also speaking for themselves. And while they represent a variety of different faith traditions, I trust that their opinions are theirs as well. So, to the business at hand. Thank you to the College of Education, Health, and Human Services for sponsoring this, to Counseling and Psychological Services, a university effort to provide counseling and psych services to faculty, staff, and students. Our friends are here and counselors are available. And so there's a table outside also from CAPS. Please make yourself known if that would be helpful. And to the Center for Social Justice and Inclusion, because we can't do the work of social justice and inclusion when we are in struggle, particularly struggle around our mental health. And the social justice work it takes a toll on our mental health. So thank you for them for sponsoring us as well. Jen Kornacki is here, Director of the Dearborn Pastoral Counseling Center. She will be one of our facilitators later for some roundtable kinds of discussion. I think Latifa Savage is also supposed to be joining us, who will help facilitate those conversations as well. So, with that, let me at least briefly introduce our panelists for today. We have Rachel Lawson Shere, who is joining us, a rabbi, grew up in the suburbs of Detroit. You have long, extended biographies of all of them that you should have received, so please know that. Yusra is joining us today as a social worker, licensed social worker and therapist. Srividhya is here, combining, again, sort of mental health work and interesting, holds a doctor of physical therapy. So we're starting to see some intersections between physical and mental health. And I'm pleased to welcome Bruce to the panel as well, who's a chaplain and has an affiliation also with Michigan Medicine. So we see clearly that intersection between physical and mental health. So I'll leave to all of you to read their longer bios. We hope for students, especially present, that their career paths will also be illustrative for you. But let me kick this off, and Srividhya, because we often start so close to me, I'm going to start way down at the end of my panel. I'm going to ask you to start, if you would. My question for all of you, by way of introduction, will be this. Is there a story, is there a parable or passage, in brief, that you feel exemplifies your understanding of your faith traditions, commitment to the importance of mental health and wellness? And Srividhya, I'll ask you to kick off the conversation, please.
Thank you, Dr. Wren. Thank you, Lindsey. Thank you, U-of-M, College of Health Sciences, for giving me this opportunity to include me in this as a one of the panelists among well-experienced panelists. My background is pediatric physical therapy. I've been in touch with mental health as we see it with my other with my patients and family, but I have not ventured into this long. So I'm actually here to learn more than impart. But my understanding of mental health and what it exemplifies or personifies from the faith I come from. I'm a Hindu, and I represent the organization Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, and I'm also a yoga therapist, and I teach yoga as part of treatment with along with the traditional physical therapy, and then private practice as well. So as a Hindu and imparting and what I understand and how this mental health is so important. So I want to give you an example of how this is so important and how it's intertwined from our epic Vedic scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Like you have your Bible and the Quran and the Synagogue. So it says that what is superior to our senses is our mind, and what is superior to the mind is the intelligence, and beyond that superior is the soul. So the soul is the eternal one, and then that's indestructible. And if we identify that the soul controls everything and not by the senses, and then that's where we have the control over our mind. So controlling the mind is the most important thing, and anybody who is unaware and lacks the experience or is under the illusion of not identifying or going with this or identifying the senses, which is the inferior aspect of it, they do end up with not identifying themselves with the soul, and then that causes all the problems. So understanding that soul is eternal and controlling mind, needs to be controlled and not our body with the senses, which becomes inferior. So that is my understanding, and then that's a strong connection within the faith. With spirituality allows for advancement, and so the combination of the religious beliefs and the spirituality can definitely promote healing and build a stronger mind, and for us to function as individuals and to carry on our day-to-day life. So This is my small understanding of how the physical and the mental are intertwined and what is most important.
Bruce, please.
All right, well, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and to help with this important topic. From a Christian perspective, I would say if you were going to talk about a passage, to me it's about the holistic care of people. And for that, I looked at Paul's writing in 1 Corinthians 12, and he talks about as there are many parts, there's one body. Now, he's talking about, as we as Christians, we talk about we are the body of Christ, going out to the world and doing that work. But in the same way, he's talking about all those different parts of the body being, of the community, the body. It's also the same thing with our physical body and our mind, that it's all connected and it's all important. And in verse 26 he says, if one member suffers, all suffer together. If one member is honored, all rejoice together. It's about the physical, the mental, and the spiritual all being connected together. And in fact, in our in the church I go to, at the 242 Community Church in Ann Arbor, and it's a non-denominational Christian church, but we do a coaching group with we offer coaching one-on-one as well as we do small groups. But in our one-on-one coachings, the things we go through, we call them the RPMs, and it's the RPMS acronym is relational, physical, mental, and spiritual. So when I coach another guy that I go have a one-on-one coaching session with, those are the things I go through, and I make sure that he's doing well with all four of those things. It's not that any one is any more important than the other. We just set the acronym in place because it was a cool thing to say. We're going to check your RPMs. But really, it's about holistic care, and I just wanted to give you also a quote from C.S. Lewis, a 20th century Christian theologian, and he said, mental pain is less dramatic than physical pain, but it is more common and also more hard to bear. The frequent attempt to conceal mental pain increases the burden. It's easier to say my tooth is aching than to say my heart is broken.
Thank you. You, sir, please.
Hey everyone, so I just wanted to thank the organizers and the university for putting such a very important discussion together. So I'm Muslim and I'm also a mental health professional. Sorry, is this better? Yeah. Okay. So as I was saying, I'm a Muslim and I'm also a mental health professional. And when I started, going into the mental health field, I wanted to know why there was a disconnect between religion and mental health in general, because I think there was just a misconception about it, because I think everything that religion has and everything that mental health, they really go well together, and there's no contradictions in any of them. So with Islam, so before I went into the mental health profession, I was really involved in my mosque, and I saw that there was a lot of potential to have like a mental health department within our mosque, because mosques are not just like with any religious centers. They're not just a place of worship. They are community centers. So there should be some form of department or organization or committee in every religious center, because it is the place that people usually go to first when they have an issue, because not everyone understands how mental health works. They don't know the different professions, like who to go to. Do I see a therapist, a psychiatrist? But they do go to their religious leaders, like, I'm having issues with my family, I'm having issues with this, and So for me, I felt like it was so important that religious leaders were trained, or that we had professionals at these community centers so that they were able to help people. And, with Islam as a religion, I felt like it's definitely a religion that promotes mental wellness. We have so many practices, we have so many things that do take care of the mind, that do take care of everything, really, the physical, mental health. And like I said, nothing really contradicts it. So in our faith, we pray 5 times a day, and it's a form of meditation for us. And, in so many verses of the Quran, it talks about, the importance of the mind and taking care of your physical and mental health. So for me, like I mentioned, I felt like this is the best place to have it. There have been hundreds of studies on people improving their mental health when they do, get involved with their religious practices and, the religious rituals as well, like praying. And not only that, the community support is really important too. So when you're going to a place like a mosque where there's everyone involved, you feel that community support. And with mental health, a lot of those symptoms can feel like you're isolated or you're in this alone. So coming to a place where you have someone that understands your religion, understands mental health, and provides that community support, I thought was just really important. And with like Islam, like I said, there's a lot of like the misconceptions I feel like came out of ignorance. Either people weren't trained in mental health, so that's why you hear the topic, or you need to pray more, you need to do things, because I felt like it was because they didn't know what else to say because they're not mental health professionals. So when we worked with religious leaders, when we came together, they got trained in these things, and they felt like, okay, this makes me a better Muslim, this makes me a better religious leader. So that's the reason why I kind of integrated religion and mental health, and I just felt like it was much stronger together, and I feel like I'm just taking too much time now, so.
Please. Okay, so my name is Rachel, Rabbi Rachel. I'm a rabbi at Adat Shalom Synagogue in Farmington, Hils. And I was almost late. I think I made Sam a little bit worried because I was almost late today because I had a very important religious obligation this morning. And it wasn't to pray or to help someone who didn't have enough food, although those are religious obligations. It was because my son forgot to take his anxiety medication, and I needed to go to his school to bring it to him. And that is an incredibly important religious obligation, in my opinion. And if he had diabetes and forgot his insulin, I would rush that to school too. And they're exactly in the same category. Chapter 2, verse 7 of Genesis says that we are created from the dust of the earth and the breath of God. And the dust of the earth is our physical part. And it's subject to all the laws of the physical universe, which are, we're breaking down. Entropy is happening. We move towards chaos, and our bodies are fallible, and they have all sorts of problems, and we need to be, as religious people, we're looking to bring wholeness to what's broken, to bring light to what's dark, and research and medicine and all of these areas, they help to make human beings more effective, to help us to be the fullest expression of who we can be in the world. And if you have paralyzing anxiety or depression, you can't express your soul in the way that you were put in the world to express it. So I believe that any kind of mental health help that we can get, whether it's medication, therapy, it's a religious obligation because we were all put here for a reason, and we can't express our purpose and be the people that God needs us to be in this very broken world if we're struggling to just get out of bed in the morning or to be in a room full of people and not feel debilitating anxiety. So it's religion. The word religion, you may or may not know, comes from the same Latin root as ligament, which is that which connects, right? It connects disparate parts of ourself, our bones. So religion is meant to help us feel connected to our soul, connected to the best part of ourself, connected to each other, connected to something bigger than ourselves. And if religion can't look at mental health in the way that it's critical to human flourishing, then I don't know what can. So a huge part of what I do as a rabbi is help people to integrate body, mind, and spirit, and that includes mental health. If you have low insulin, you have diabetes. If your neurotransmitters aren't balanced exactly right, you have mental health issues. There's absolutely no difference. And all the prayer in the world is not going to balance the neurotransmitters in your head. So I believe that we need to have body, mind, and spirit all in sync and balanced in order to be the human beings that the world needs us to be, to move it towards wholeness and light.
Thank you. It's no surprise the panelists that we've brought to you today that are able to so articulately express this kind of mind-body connectedness. And so I'm interested, and I'm grateful to you, Rachel and Yusra in particular, as you've talked about the kind of clear pathway, right? That we would clearly treat a person with diabetes. If we drove to campus today and saw a motor vehicle crash, we'd want EMS to roll, to the scene, and that our attention to our family members, our community's mental health should be as primary in our lives. So I appreciate your acknowledging within the first few minutes of our destigmatizing this, talking about that we need to supplement prayer with additional intentional action. And so I'm wondering if you can talk, because it requires often such integration and such care, can you talk a little bit about, and I'll start maybe with Yusra and go in the other direction, so Rachel will come to you last this time. Can you talk a little about the ways that you partner in your faith tradition, in your experiences, with other provider groups? And so what's, for students in particular, but faculty and staff, what is the connection between their faith community and service providers within the region? How do you make that an easy transition for people?
So, like you mentioned, it's really important that we have all that collaboration between different people. So, number one, when I first started working at the mosque and getting involved, I was realizing, no matter how much you want to help someone, you need the proper training. So we have religious leaders, and it's amazing to see as a rabbi that someone is really knowledgeable about mental health, and we need more religious leaders like that, So if, the intention was there, so they want to help people, but they are not, their background is not mental health, right? So, and we do kind of ask a lot from our religious leaders. We expect them to do everything and anything. So we have any problem, we expect them to solve it. And so one of the things is that they need the proper training. So, we started off with mental health first aid. We wanted all religious leaders to at least understand the basics of mental health. If someone comes to you, you know who to refer them to, you know what signs and symptoms to look for, you can understand the basics of mental health disorders and where to go from there. So we started to also provide services for anyone in the community that was in a different phase or stage in their life when it comes to religion. I think people think that they need to be religious people to go to religious centers, and that shouldn't be the case. So a lot of the programs we provide aren't for religious people. They don't need to be religious because everyone can define that differently in their own, in their own terms. And with many of the programs we have, there's also been non-Muslims that attend as well. So the, I feel like they feel like they need to be in categories or boxes that, okay, if I'm a practicing Muslim, I go there. If I'm not, I go here, and I can't really be both. So, we have to make sure that whatever we're providing for people, they feel welcomed. They feel, the most important aspect of this is mental health. So wherever they are with their, spirituality, we can take care of that, but there's still a place for everyone. And the people need to understand that. So that's why sometimes in religious settings, people are always going to feel like they're not religious enough, or this is not the place for them. Excuse me. So taking care of that too, where we're addressing different populations, even within the same faith group. And working with mental health professionals. So our group at My Mental Wellness, that's the organization that is at the Islamic Center of Detroit. It's a group of mental health professionals that are connected in the community from either different cities, different groups like schools and hospitals and other community organizations, and they bring in those resources and we connect with them. So we and also bringing in different things that people are more open to. it's, you know, as a mental health professional, it kind of seems easy, as in, okay, if you have an issue, go see a therapist, go see a psychiatrist, and it's not like that. Mental health is it can be more complicated, and so we have to bring in different things. So we bring in art therapy, we bring in support groups, we bring in yoga, we bring in all these other things that can still help your mental health, and everyone has a place in it, right? So so that's how we connect with different mental health providers in the community. We do connect with other religious groups as well. We connect with universities as well. We did something with Wayne State, and so in the schools as well, our local schools, mostly Dearborn public schools. You know, so that's how we have to. That's how we're like reaching out to different providers and connecting, you know, faith and mental health.
Great. Thanks. Bruce, can you talk a little bit about community connections?
Yeah. So I work in the hospital every day, so I see people from all over the community, and actually I don't just see Christian people, I see people of any faith or no faith at all, and treat them the same, right? We meet them as an interfaith chaplain when we come into a room. But working in the context of the hospital, I kind of relate that with my faith to, if I continue to that passage that I was talking about before with the different parts of the body, it's also the next part of that passage. Paul writes about the different spiritual gifts that each person gets, and talking about each Christian who believes in Christ gets different spiritual gifts, and that context in a bigger picture looks sort of like what it's like in a hospital, where you have a social worker and a doctor and a nurse and someone who's cleaning up the room, and other physical therapists coming in, and we also had music therapists and art therapists and chaplains, and we all are seeing that patient, and when we see something going on with that patient, we are not only looking at our own discipline, but we're also saying, wow, is there something that I could refer to one of these other caregivers to provide for this person? So if I see someone who, in the context of talking to them about their faith, and I start to identify or recognize some mental health issues, I'm going to either get social work or a psych consult involved, so that person's going to get that as well. And the same thing goes for them. If they are talking to the person and they see the person is having a real struggle with their relationship with God, they're going to call me or put in a chaplain consult. So in that context of what I do professionally, that's how that works. But even looking at it in the context of my faith group, since I'm here representing Christians, the church that I attend, we have a lot of counseling centers that we have on a list that we recommend, that are mostly they're Christian counseling centers, but they are licensed professionals, either licensed social workers or licensed psychologists. And if we are doing one of those, say that counseling session with a one-on-one coaching, like I was talking about before, if I determine that the person I'm coaching needs some help beyond what I can give them as a spiritual counselor, I'm going to refer them immediately. After probably one visit, I'm going to say, you really need to go to one of these counseling centers and give them the list of all the opportunities and all the availability that I know of in the region where they're at. Of course, I'm in the Ann Arbor area, so it's lots of places in Ann Arbor, but I know there are the same kind of resources here in Dearborn or wherever you are. So I guess I just wanted to say that, looking at that mental health and Christian faith are not incompatible, that they work together. And my understanding, even through my training as a chaplain, is that people are biopsychosocial spiritual people and beings, and all of those things, again, they need to be in balance. And so it's a both and. It's not just come to see us because you've got a problem and come to the church and talk to your pastors. It's come to see us and go see somebody else and get some mental health care or psychological counseling if that's what you need.
Great. Srividhya, please.
So I'm not a mental health professional, but how in general we integrate the spirituality and the religious practice. So we have our Hindu Swayamsevak Sangh organization, and part of that we have our temples where we do all the what we call the pujas, or the offerings, the praying to God, the prayer. We all pray in the main hall as a community. We pray together. We also have things in our own house that we have, we have the idols and the what we call the murtis, or of the different gods, and we pray that way. And from the as an infant and as a child, if you're born a Hindu, then you are drawn into these type of practice. As many of you are aware, the Hindu dharma is a way of life. It is a dharma. It's a practice and not considered a religion. So everybody born as a Hindu, they follow a certain rituals and cultural practices. So integration of by saying duty is deity, and then follow being our religion or the dharma also preaches non-violence, and we follow a certain diet, vegetarian diet, by not killing something and then not causing any harm, and then showering before you go to your prayer room or going to the temple, and then following celibacy. So these are the various ways that a Hindu child is being brought up, and then they follow these practices, and then finally, trying to attain salvation or moksha. Now, in integrating this in the community is mainly you go to the temple, visit the worship at the temple during all your holidays, major festivals, like Christianity has Christmas, and Muslim, they have their Eid and Ramzan, and they observe the fast, and then the Jews, they have their Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. So we have the biggest holiday like Diwali, and it's one of them. So following all those rituals, and then getting into this habit and practices, and integrating them is one, and then we don't separate the mental health, and this is just, you bring the child to be a stronger person, and that's how this is integrated. But being here and not being in your domain country, being here, we have from a larger family where we have follow the joint family system. So we don't follow the joint family system here. We are a nuclear family like any of the industrial nations. So what happens is, we don't have our elders with us who can guide us, and we look upon the temple priests for all sorts of, like Kusra was saying, we expect them to fix everything or advise us of all the or seek the knowledge from them for all the practices that we are not aware, and with our families back being not, or our parents not being here. And I have been in this country for 22 years, and my son was born here, but I have been practicing or continuing to practice what I have done in the past as I was growing up, and then my son was also introduced to the same thing, and then hoping that he would carry on this religious practice and the tradition with his family as well. So we do lack the awareness. So I believe that our Asian community is not anywhere close, or they do lack the awareness about anxiety, depression, and mental health. As this topic says, it's the stigma attached. We typically tend to hide about whether if the child is having a problem, the physical problem. Like I said, it's easy to say you have a toothache, then you say you are heartbroken, or you are depressed, which usually is not expressed. And the children here do have to are sometimes in a state of confusion whether where do they belong, and they have the identity crisis. So we typically bring them we keep them closer, we They tend to hide. We don't want this to be because of the stigma attached to the mental health or the word even mental. They think that, okay, you are immediately, the broader understanding is that you are psychotic. So that is why it is we want to make sure that one of the reason I am getting into this is to increase the awareness among our community. But at this point, the integration is mainly through our temple, and we yoga in India is the domain source for yoga. So yoga is being practiced, meditation in the form of prayer. So do the various things like, duties deity, which is like your karma yoga, and then pray to God every day is bhakti yoga, and then meditate, that is the Raja Yoga, and finally, achieve salvation. So these are the various practices. We guide our children, and then we have all the hymns and phrases like you read your Bible. We have our Bhagavad Gita and the Ramayana, and explaining to the children about all that, giving them the understanding, exposing them to their roots is one way of integrating them with a sound body and a mind. That is where we are right now. Yeah.
Rachel, will you talk a little, please, about
Sure.
integration
So
or
one of the-
referrals in your tradition?
Yeah, so one of the goals I have is to make, mental health issues a casserole illness. Like people bring a casserole when someone gets to the hospital because they broke their leg, or had, like, when someone's child is hospitalized, like no one brings a casserole. This should, and it is really starting to become a casserole illness, and I'm so grateful for that because people are talking about it, and they're putting it out there on social media. They're saying, like, my child has been admitted to a mental health unit. I need some suggestions, I need some help. And that's the way that we evolve. That's the way that we get better. If your child is diagnosed with, let's say, some kind of obscure cancer, you talk to everyone you know to find the best doctors and the best treatment centers. And when your child is diagnosed with bipolar disorder, you kind of like, hunker down and don't say anything to anyone, and it's, private, and that's not the way it should be, and it's not helping anyone, the least of whom your child. So that's one of the goals I've had in the last 10 years, and I feel like we've really evolved as a community in terms of talking about it. We have sessions where people come, and we have social workers, basically from the beginning of life until the end. I run groups with psychologists and psychiatrists to talk about these issues. So starting at, postpartum, people who've had a baby, have little children, I run a group with a psychologist where we talk about, possible issues people might be having related to mental health, either for themselves or their children. And then when their child is getting to be a teenager and they're having their bar bat mitzvah, Jewish coming of age ceremony, we work with Dr. Jeremy Baruch, actually, maybe you know him at U of M, and we have a whole curriculum around not just learning to chant in Hebrew, but learning meditation techniques and learning how to have difficult conversations with your parents, with other people, giving them a toolbox at that age that then they can use. Around the wedding, I do counseling that involves also a social worker. Around, we have an AA group that meets weekly at the synagogue. When we pray for health every Sabbath, we pray for people who have addictions, people who have, I always say, mind, body, spirit, addiction. We include everyone in our prayers for help, and that they find the right resources to help them. And even in the bereavement support groups that I run, I always utilize the help of a social worker. So there are psychiatrists, social workers, and psychologists, like every step of the way, helping me to do my job the best that I can.
I'm glad you said casserole. I come from a long, distinguished tradition in the Midwest where my mother believed everything could be made in a 9 by 13 inch pan with cream of something soup. So this is right up my alley, I'm happy to say. I'm going to ask my panelists to think for a moment, because before I turn it over to our audience, I'm going to give them one last question. As we work in higher education to train our students at the undergraduate and graduate levels, we're often confronting intersections and trying to talk out loud, as you all have described the importance of, those kind of collisions of race and ethnicity, of sex and gender and sexual orientation, of faith and religion, or lack thereof, and certainly today politics. And so where those moments of intersection come together in the lives of young people still developing, I think, those intersections can be synergistic and positive, or antagonistic and really quite challenging. And so I'm gonna, put you on the spot for a little bit and ask you to have maybe just an elevator pitch, a sentence, a line, a thing that they might say to those significant others in their lives, their own leaders in their faith communities who may not be as receptive as you, their parents, significant others, for how to best navigate those collisions where perhaps faith and spirituality and other identities really feel like atoms colliding. So pause for a sec, because I'm going to ask you to, kind of distill it into an elevator pitch, so they really can jot it down if they like, take it home if they like, but a useful mantra, device, or slogan. So whenever one of you is ready, you're free to begin.
People talk about having spiritual experiences, but it's been said before, we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, and our spirit needs to be able to express itself in the fullness of its beauty. And that's, I would say, what, if I were talking to someone, I'm trying to express the fullness of my spirit, please listen to me.
So I would encourage people to actually look for people that do encourage them to seek help and understand them, and get some advice from them. I would also encourage those people to not minimize their issues, and kind of own what they're going through, and tell people no matter how other people react to it, because what you're going through is real, and you're the only one that can explain that. You're the only one that can define that. So ignore what everyone else is saying, because people will catch on later. People will reach to where you need to be, but focus on how you're feeling and what you need to do, and find the right people that will help you, because there will be people out there that will assist you.
Well, in the Christian context, we always say that we know that Jesus commanded us to love one another as he loved us. And so that includes loving ourselves, and because Jesus loved all of us. And so to love ourselves, we need to take care of ourselves, and that means all the parts of us that God created and gave to us. So we need to continue to look after not just our physical needs, but our mental needs as well. So in the same way, I would say it was inconsistent if you would go to the doctor for a broken arm, but you won't go to a doctor for a broken heart or something else in your mind. And if you're looking at a mental issue as a spiritual issue as opposed to a brain issue, then you're being inconsistent with your physiology.
Like I had mentioned in my previous briefing about how we hide ourselves, and then the eldest in the family comes to your rescue, instead of you going and seeking a psychologist or a therapist, or even bring it up to your pediatrician, you will internalize it, and then the family comes to the rescue, either the child or the adult member that is going through that issue. And my message to particularly our community is that do not internalize it. If you are suffering, everybody is suffering. You do not want to internalize. Please speak up. This is real. The issue is real. There may not be many, like I said, within our priests or in our religious hierarchy, we may not have anybody who is qualified yet to be, but at least seek, and then come seek it out, and when I had organized through Detroit Indian Women's Association, we had organized mental health it was like for the first time that even the Indian community, the health wellness committee put it together and to create the awareness, because somebody who was as close to me as my son took his life in March of this year. And it was very devastating to our family, to our friends, and we had not, this was not even thought about that a child could be going through. So to the parents out there, look out for your son. Do not just put a Band-Aid on and cover that up saying everybody is talking about it, so could it be a learned behavior? No, because everybody is talking about it. That is why it is a bigger problem. Do not look at just the physical needs, and don't just ask your child, oh, is everything all right, or is all good, or do not only advertise that your son scored 100% or got the highest SAT, or your son is going to an Ivy League school. As you know, in our community, the academic achievements considered to be the greatest, and if you have done well, the expectation is that your child should do twice as well. And do not keep that pressure. Our younger generation is not able to handle that, that pressure, but talk to them, try to find out what they are going through, and also ask them what was wrong today, not just that everything is hunky-dory, and don't paint, and then don't cover yourself or hide yourself, internalize speak up. And then for the younger generation is, do not wait too long. When we did the seminar, it's not a one line, because it's very hard, Dr. Wren, to put this in one line. I'm going off the thing, but it is, do not internalize it. Speak up. Until you speak up and seek help, it may not be obvious to your parents, who may not have gone through any of this. And so I would, for the younger generation, is that do not wait too long. I had, during the breakout session, some of the questions we had is, I cry a lot, is that depression? So what do we answer those questions? So they need to talk to their pediatrician, need to talk to somebody who they think they can trust. It could be outside of their family, but again, creating this awareness and speaking up. So that would be my biggest message to everybody. Speak up, identify, do not internalize, seek help.
I have some friends here who are able to collect some cards. If you, I will remind our participants today that if you have a particular question, please write that down. Lindsey is up and about and is happy to shepherd those to me. You will also, I remind you, have an opportunity to speak in small groups and work in a facilitative kind of way in just a few minutes, so don't give up on me about that. One of the questions that was raised really has to do with, we'll flip it a little and we'll do it a little bit gently, the impact on one's mental health of not being or feeling that one is not strictly adherent to the tenets of their faith. And so where one is struggled around dietary restrictions, where one is exploring things about sexuality and is not celibate, or is dating someone outside of their religion, or is dating someone of the same sex. I think there are a number of things that can pose again those collisions and conflicts, especially in the lives of young people who are still developing as humans and as persons potentially of faith. So what would your message be to an individual who feels perhaps that their thoughts or behaviors fall outside the tenets of it?
So I'll just share a vignette. I take teenagers on trips every year, and this past year I was in New York taking our teenagers on a trip and to do social action work and learn things about the world. And we're in the subway, and it's kind of an anxiety-producing experience for anyone to be in the New York subway, with a group of like 30 teenagers. And I'm standing next to this group of boys, and I hear them talking about, well, like my psychologist says when I'm anxious, I should do a breathing technique, and he's like helping them breathe. And then another one says, well, I take this medication, and they start talking about their various medications and their psychologists. And this is just a typical group of teenagers. It's not, I wasn't picking a group who have like mental health issues per se, but that's how open and accepted it is to talk about the fact that life is hard and we all need a toolbox to help us in these situations. And then there's someone who says, I know that last year when I was on the trip, you called me Natalie, but now my name is Hunter and I'm a guy. And you thought I was a female last year, but I'm trans, and I really appreciated if everyone used, male pronouns to address me, and everyone did. And that's amazing. That's evolution. That's what we're seeking to make the synagogue a place where people can be, again, the fullest expression of who they are. No one made fun of her, him, now. And the year before that, we had 2 lesbian couples on this teenage trip. And it's like when I went on these trips as a teen, that would have been unheard of. And yet, in the Bible, in the Torah, the very first thing, God creates things and says, God created the sun and the moon, it was good. God created the trees and the plants and the animals, it was good. The first thing that's not good is lo tov liot adam levado. It's not good for a human being to be alone. And we believe that it's not good for any of us to be alone, and we should all find love and support where we can. And lastly, we have a support group even at the synagogue for siblings who have a sibling with a mental health issue, so that they can come and talk on a weekly basis, eat pizza, and talk about what it feels like to have a sibling who's struggling. Because again, if your sibling is struggling with cancer or whatnot, people are always looking out for you. But if your sibling, you can't have friends over because your sibling starts screaming sometimes, or your sibling is pacing around the house, that creates, conflict and issues for you. So that's a weekly group that we have that was actually started by a 16-year-old young woman in our synagogue.
So to answer your question, I feel like we all, well, not we all, but many people think that it's either all or nothing. And we kind of need to practice it to the T or not practice at all. And with every religion, I feel like there's a place for someone. So I'm speaking on behalf of Islam, but there's a place for everyone, and it doesn't matter how religious you are or you're struggling with anything. People make you feel like you need to be a perfect religious person, and what that ends up doing is just pushing you away from the religion completely. And why that happens is because of the people, not really the religion itself. And I think we forget that we're all human, and then we have more that brings us together, that separates us. And so if someone views something differently than you, or is struggling with something that you don't personally struggle with, or identifies in a certain way, then they should still have a place in their place of worship. They should still have a space in their community center. And so people have the right to practice however they want to, and we still have to be understanding and supportive, and focus on what does bring us together. So we really have to stop isolating people or not including them because of a way they view something. Because I really don't think religion was made to be that way, and it definitely isn't. And it's the harshness of people usually that does that. So I think as everyone, we in general, we can just be nicer, we could be more understanding, we could be open, and we could include those everyone in our spaces. And so that's what we could all do on a personal level, and religious centers as well. So like I said, people need to understand that it's not all or nothing. There are spirituality, it's a scale, and people are in different places, and that's okay. It's not meant to be very black and white anyways. So
Thank you.
Well said, you sir. I think in Christianity, again, we can go back to that God loves us all, and no matter what we are experiencing or what our faith is, we can know that He loves us, and we can know that within Christianity there is such a broad spectrum of different worship places, and we're not going to be able to solve in one afternoon here the thousands of years of traditions of religion, but there are places that are accepting of everyone. So When I'm in the hospital context, I certainly, if I find someone in there saying, well, my particular church is not accepting of whatever it is that I'm experiencing, then I help them to find another one, because there is certainly enough out there, and there is a place, just like Shere said, there's a place for everyone out there. So I would be more than willing to always help somebody find whatever it is that fits their experience. And that is something that I think is the way that I can love everybody that I meet, whether they're like me or they're not like me, and it doesn't matter.
Very good. So as you're aware, I mean, I am from India, born and brought up. So India is a very diverse country with many religions, and it's a secular country, and then with many languages. So we are from the same country. I could be sitting next to somebody, but I may not be able to communicate other than in English. So it's that, and then in our temple here, we do run programs that's through the inter-community faith, and we have all types of religions. Anybody can walk into our temple and you can take a tour. They need not be there in for prayer. Like Usra said, our mosques or temples are not just places of religious practice. They are also our cultural center. It's a place of our cultural identity. It's a place of community center. And so anybody can walk in. They will be given a tour. I recently celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary, and I invited all my non-Hindu friends, and who all came to the temple, who all came to the altar as well. So everybody is included, and that is one thing with Hindu Dharma, the tolerance, that we accept everybody regardless of what their sexual orientation is, what their identity is, what their religion is. And I also strongly believe that religion should be binding, religion and spirituality should be binding and bring the community together and not separate us. So in diversity, we need to find unity. And the motto of the organization that I belong to here, Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, it's Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, meaning there is only one family, and that's world. So we are all, and then me being an immigrant, moving thousands of miles away and finding our place here, being integrated, never ever I have felt that, oh, I am being either isolated or I don't belong in this place. So we have created a community here, and with the integration, and we integrate ourselves with the other faiths that are living here and finding harmony. So I strongly believe that religion and spirituality should bring people together and the community together.
I feel like we're doing a disservice to the richness of our conversation. In typical sort of faith tradition, the front pews are all open. And it feels a little awkward and stilted, I think, on this side of that divide. And so I think what I'd like to do now is two things. One, to thank Rachel and Yusra, Bruce, and Srividhya. But I'd like to move, if we can, into a conversation. And so I'm hoping that my panelists will join me in integrating themselves amongst all of you. We had one more question out of the audience, and maybe this will be sort of the kickoff to a greater conversation together. The question essentially said that we live in a period of great divide, great dividedness, a chasm much like this that lies between us. And that faith and faith communities may have an opportunity, be uniquely positioned to welcome those who are different in many, many ways. And so perhaps because we will by definition now be interacting through our differences, I'm hoping that can be a kickoff to a greater conversation. So Jan, I know you are here also to help foster these communications with us. All of you have self-selected to come and be present with us. So with that, please join me in thanking our panel and welcoming them and their differences to come and commune with all of you and to continue our conversation. So let's please do that, transition to that.